And the Regent's presentation is queued up? And the Regent's presentation is queued up?
Yeah.
Okay. Ready? Welcome, everyone, to the council meeting for October 23rd, 2017. Note to members of the public that all cell phones, pagers, and/or PDAs to be turned off. Additionally, for your information, please be advised that we are audio-video recording this meeting. I would like to remind people of the gallery to please sign in over there to my right, your left, on the appropriate attendance sheet, if you could. And just a small note that Councillor Mike Rayner is absent. He sends his regrets for tonight's council meeting. I would ask everyone to rise for the singing of O Canada and remain standing for the opening petition by Councillor Jason Trombetta. Okay. Councillor Bosma. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all our sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land, glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Councillor Trombetta, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We gather together here today, intend on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with the insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strengths to act honestly and well in all matters before us.
Okay. Councillors, is there any change in order of items on tonight's agenda? Seeing no, Madam Clerk, we will move. Oh, sorry, before that, we have disclosure of pecuniary interest and/or conflict of interest. Councillor Balsma.
On 8.
Okay. Number 8 on tonight's agenda. Any other? No. 5 is a request to address items on the agenda. Is there any member of the gallery who would like to speak on any items of the agenda here tonight? Seeing no, Madam Clerk, we will now move on to appointments and presentations. The first one is under my name, presentation of retirement of long-term employee, Mr. John Branco, from the Township of West Lincoln Water Department. I will take the podium. Mr. Julian, if you could come up front. Mr. Branco, if you could come up front too as well, and Mrs. Branco as well, please. Right up there on my right up there with Brent. Right up to the front there. Good. Mr. Julian looks like he hasn't handled flowers very often. Just saying. Just give those to Mrs. Branco and Mr. Branco there. Members of council, members of the gallery, friends and family, it is my distinct honor to stand before you and recognize Mr. John Branco on his retirement and good standing as a long-term employee for the Township of West Lincoln. Let's put our hands together for Mr. Branco. Mr. John Branco, I've never called him Mr. John Branco. John Branco worked for the Township of West Lincoln in the Water Wastewater Department as a licensed operator for 28 years. And believe me when I say that John saw his fair share of town water main breaks over the years, sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning or in the dead of winter. Right, John? In this day and age, being able to boast to friends and family and neighbors that you have been employed by one corporation is no easy feat. But I'm here to tell all the members of the gallery that Mr. John Branco was an exemplary employee for the Township of West Lincoln. There were numerous occasions when John went above and beyond the normal call of duty, working long hours in order to see the job to its completion. As well as being extremely dedicated to the corporation and the residents of West Lincoln, John always believed in good customer service to our clients, the taxpayers of West Lincoln. So John, it's now that time to say happy retirement, my friend. It's well deserved. And really, John, this just means that there is now more time to go hunting and fishing, and who could argue with that, right? So on behalf of the Township of West Lincoln Corporation and your fellow workmates in the Public Works Department, please accept this retirement gift as our token of our appreciation for your long-standing service as a municipal employee. John, congratulations. So on behalf of the Township of West Lincoln, I'd like to present you with a certificate of recognition. It's awarded to John Branco in appreciation of your 28 years of service, presented by the municipality of the Township of West Lincoln, dated this 23rd day of October 2017. Congratulations. Yes. You're welcome to go to the podium if you want to say a few words, or you're good. Okay, in the middle there, sir. Next to the one. Again, let's put our hands together for Mr. Johnson. Okay. Next, I would like to call up Miss Kimberly Hughes. She is the volunteer coordinator for McNally House Hospice, and she is here to speak about the vision for the future of palliative care here in West Lincoln. Welcome. How are you tonight?
Good, thank you.
Good, thank you.
Now, is there a clicker or just a reach? Perfect. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you so much for entertaining our presentation tonight, and thank you so much for a warm welcome. And I'm going to present for a moment on a campaign that we're launched early October, and I'm so grateful to be able to be here to get into all the areas of our catchment area, which is West Lincoln, Lincoln, Grimsby, our whole scope. So, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on what McNally House is, but I will just mention that we are our local residential hospice. We have 6 beds, and we are located right by the hospital in Grimsby. One of our mandates is to really emphasize the life portion while someone is living with a life-limiting illness, and emphasize the joy moments, the creative moments, the moments that made them absolutely uniquely human, and how we can really reduce suffering reduce isolation, and increase choices through advocacy for anyone dying. And that's what we do at McNally House. We provide expert 24-hour-a-day complex medical care, but also emphasizing the psychospiritual care of our individuals all over the region. So we're launching a little bit of a cheeky campaign.
Yeah.
It won't kill you to talk with us. .ca. And what we're doing is we're launching a campaign to get our community's input into where they'd like to see us go in the next 10 years. We have been in West Niagara's lives for about 10 years, starting in April, coming up. And we really feel, based on the feedback from the community and how we do our jobs and what we actually do at McNally, that we do what we do really well inside the four walls of the house. The question is, what can we do to fill any gaps? What can we do to expand? And what does the next 10 years look like for us? Mm-hmm. We have a wealth of experience. We have experts. We've got all the things we know we want to be able to do. But we want to be able to hear from our community. What was your experience with a loved one? What was your experience getting a diagnosis? What did you need? Where did you have to go? Where were the moments of frustration and confusion? And could we maybe solve those? We want to be able to grow, and we want to be able to do it really well. And the only way we do it well is if we listen to our community. So I just want to mention that this is a partnership with St. Elizabeth Healthcare, their national organization. They had some funding, and we took them up on it. And it's important to note that this isn't just McNally House putting out a survey monkey real quick. This is actually a national survey. We're collecting the data, we're analyzing the data, and we're going to be using it to present to future councils when we're looking at where we can go next. So it's an investment for us and an investment in the community. So some of the questions are, would you talk to hospice if you weren't dying right away, right? If you were diagnosed with Parkinson's, or you didn't know how to talk to a loved one about a diagnosis or treatment options, would you call hospice? And the immediate answers are like, I don't need to call hospice. I don't need them. Don't need you, which is absolutely fine. But we want to be able to say, yes, you do call the local hospice. We do have resources and answers. So what we are asking of this campaign is that we have postcards that we are asking every member of council and anyone here today to take 10, 15, and start spreading the word that we just need this survey done by November 2nd. We'll just say Halloween. Do it by Halloween. And it's a 5 to 7 minute survey online. It really, unless you take a really long time to really invest in your answers, it might take you a bit longer. But regularly 5 to 7 minutes online. The hospice has paper copies we can email anyone. We have paper copies we can drop off if constituents are really wanting to fill it out on paper. And we're just really asking you to invest with us and ask the community. So we have posts on our Facebook page, we have posts on our Twitter, and we're asking you, fill out the survey, and then look someone in the eye and say, I've taken it, can you? This will really actually help us build our community and our resources and what we can do.
Very good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly, for your presentation there on McNally House. I know that there are some really exceptional people that work there at McNally at the hospice, and I want to say that you throw a very good golf tournament every year too as well.
Thank you.
And that's important because those are the needed funds to continue with the program. I wasn't trying to be cheeky there, but it is a good golf tournament and it raises a lot of really good funds for
Well, we
the
do have to
hospice.
raise $650,000 a year to keep our services open and free to everyone in our whole region. So we do get some government funding. We only get 66% of our nursing staffing costs. So if you think of hourly per year,
Yeah.
66, 67%,
Yeah.
which leaves us with about $650,000.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, members of council, is there any questions for Ms. Hughes? No? Okay, thank you so much, and we will take those postcards and we will put them on the front desk.
There shouldn't be any left over.
By Halloween, you mean? Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay. You want to put up that presentation for the region, please? Next on our appointments and presentations, we have Mr. Phil Lambert. He is the Associate Director of Infrastructure Planning for the region of Niagara, and he has kind of a cheeky presentation. That's a word of the night, cheeky. It's a top 10 things we learned from researching Niagara's real estate market. And I rather enjoyed it this week or last week at our regional planning meeting, so I thought it would be appropriate, Mr. Lambert, if he came by and delivered that presentation to West Lincoln Council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do appreciate the opportunity to present this. This is some good this is a good research project that we worked on. So what happened is we worked with, and I should actually get to the cheeky part first. So one of my favorite things growing up was watching Dave Letterman, that top 10 presentation. So some of the stuff can sometimes be a bit dry. So what we thought we'd do is take the top 10 approach. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to bring the band with me for this, but Brian's here and he assured me he could do the drum roll. All right.
Brian, that's you. Cue.
Well, you know what, Brian, save it till number one. It'll be, well, whatever you wish. You're the conductor tonight. You're my Paul Schaefer. All right. So we had PMA. They're a leading realty firm out of the GTHA. They've done a lot of research and marketing. And what they were doing for us was a project to look at what is the Niagara market for real estate. And we worked with them as part of a project where Regional Council's strategic priority of get greater population. So it was, can we expand our growth by 10,000 people by 2018? And the purpose of this actually aligned with some other projects like global attractiveness as well as youth retention. So what we did is we got into doing some homeowner surveys. We sent out 2,400 new homeowner surveys for people that had been recently about 5 years into their new homes. And we also followed that up with focus groups. And we were really looking for factors that drive home ownership to Niagara. The other thing we did is we also surveyed the home builders and developers. So we worked through the Niagara Home Builder Association as well as directly reached out to 36 distinct groups, some within Niagara, some outside of Niagara. And what we were looking there was for factors that drive builder and developer attraction to Niagara. And all of this is hinged on our planning and development group creating positive relationships with the industry to move creative solutions forward to promote more development. So, without any further ado,
Actually, I think it's just before number one that the drum roll happens. I remember now the show.
this never happens to me.
Which one is he supposed to press to get it to go?
I think the drum is going over. I think so. Yeah.
We can't find it?
No, it's there.
All we had to do was get it so that it would count down, change the slides. Yeah. I'm not. I know, but what happened to it? Well, in the absence of time, let's just go without it, Phil. And let staff kind of just see if we can still get it up there, but
Do you want to give it a chance to restart, or
is that what we're doing?
these guys could work for IT? That's what I always get.
Photographer, drummer, IT. And planner.
It's amazing how time
And
really
grandpa.
flies. And grandpa.
Okay, let's go. Phil,
All right,
do it without it.
I'll have to do it. I can do it without it.
There you go.
So, number 10 is 91% of homeowners surveyed were likely to recommend Niagara Region as a place to live for their family and friends. And that's great news because it's great word of mouth recommendation and supports a great environment, amenities, and safe and friendly place that we have here. One thing we heard from our focus group was kids can play in the street too, play hockey in the streets. Number 9 was attracting young professionals to the Niagara region and making that a priority. So our focus group, we had some young professionals in there at one of our night sessions, and what drove them here was better home value, and that they could drive until they qualify for a home. I'm sure there's some people that have heard that before. And also the fact that we provide various forms of housing. What you're seeing at the Casablanca Interchange is a good example for attracting a different demographic. And also we should mention that we have a youth attraction project with our council as well. Number 8 was builders and developers ranked their experience for marketing lots and homes as 5.7 out of 10. The good news is that's a pass, but we have room to improve. And what we heard was this is not that unusual compared to other areas within southern Ontario. It's a complex process to get development going, but we need to build upon our positive development industry relationships. And what we also heard through our engagement was that builders want lots to build on. So what we need to do is we need to be a little bit more proactive to planning for this development to ensure that we have opportunities for them. And what we also heard was 100% of the respondents said that they would choose Niagara again. Number 7 was builders and developers are 3 times more likely to see expedited approvals as an incentive than reduced development charges. So this is very timely for the region as we've just gone through a process about development charges. But what we heard was that delays in the development approval process is a consistent industry concern. PMA provided some stories for us about how there were, in cases, 12 years between land purchase and when that came to market. And you have to remember that in a lot of these cases, that's the carrying cost from purchase to actually getting a return on investment when the lot is purchased. So the region and municipalities, we have to do the necessary work to plan for great communities. That includes the concept of complete communities, appropriate density, as well as quality design. A good example of this would be along the QEW. You've probably seen the Prudhome's property. In that case, the region has partnered with the town of Lincoln to a lot of planning work. So what that means is the developer can come in with a draft plan, a subdivision, instead of having to do an official plan, zoning bylaw amendment, and then make the application for a subdivision agreement. So number 6 was our Niagara Region development charges compared favorably to the surrounding areas. So even with our recent $5,000 increase on a single-family home, the Niagara Region, including local municipalities, are still at the low end. And one thing that's important to note that many of these comparators are going to be going through their process to look at their development charges, and chances are that's not going down. So number 5 was new homeowners surveyed did not have a high ratio mortgage. So that's being less than 20% down payment. So one of the positive things about that is that means that they're getting good value, but also that they'll have spending money. And ownership is possible without a high ratio mortgage, which you're hearing a lot of in the GTA area. Number 4 was Niagara Region has a strong new home market geared toward empty nesters and retirees. So PMA had warned us a little bit about this, saying you don't want to have a one-faceted market. However, earlier in the year, we had some economists evaluate Niagara's economy. And what they suggested is that having this demographic come in wasn't all bad, because this group brought savings and a pension, which they spent. Also that they didn't require a job, and they could generate the need for population for more service type industry in the health and tourism. So it would generate some in-migration of younger people to fill these roles. Number 3 was making residential development a priority. So that was one of the things we've heard before, is development does not just happen. It has to be proactively planned. We got to continue to build on our industry relationships and work with stakeholders. We got to invest in delivering planning services to move developments forward with a quicker approval process. Great communities are supported by a strong vision and a planning framework that's consistent across the region and supports investment and economic development. The reality is our return on investment for development occurs once a building permit is taken. We get our development charges, and that triggers the assessment, so that generates new tax revenue. Number 2 was the affordable real estate was ranked the top reason for people to come to Niagara, with enjoyable amenities and a safe community as second and third. The focus group stated that their overriding reason for choosing Niagara was the fact of they had good home pricing. They could buy the home they desired, even if they didn't work in the area. The location was another item that was brought up. Being close to the GTHA, they could work. They were close to their family and friends. We heard about the climate, a nice warm climate, the banana belt phenomenon you hear about. Amenities such as wineries, the natural environment, golf courses, casinos, nature hikes, safe and friendly communities. And Niagara has a lot of unique and authentic characters and communities. There's something for everyone here. And the number one was, thanks Brian, that saved the presentation. Up until now it was a little dodgy. All right, focus on marketing Niagara to our prospective residents. So consistent with themes we've heard from youth attraction and our global attractiveness, we need to work with our community stakeholders, so that's Brock, that's Niagara College, about getting the message out about Niagara and trying to bring in, we're all on the same page here, we're trying to bring in lots of different demographics to Niagara and get them to stay and live here. Our economic development group is working on a Why Niagara plan. They're working on a website as well as getting into a marketing plan to focus for 2018. This is also going to have youth retention and an employment lens to it. So throughout this process, having our homeowner focus groups, one thing that we actually heard was people happened across Niagara. They were looking, retirees from Ottawa said they just found Niagara and couldn't believe what a beautiful place it was. And within a weekend, they actually determined the house they're going to have and purchase, which is quick. I'm sure Fred can probably speak to that better than I can. But and another example is there's Empire Communities in Thorold, Welland area, just off the 406 near Merritt Road. It's a large development called Empire Legacy. So what they've done is they've taken out a full page in the Toronto Life magazine and talked about how, come to Niagara, come to Thorold, it's this beautiful place. And they outlined all these wonderful amenities that they have. So what we're doing going forward is we actually have a media relations plan where we're going to be taking this information, we're going to be reaching out with our contacts in the GTHA to try to get better promotion of Niagara. And moving forward, we want to make sure that we're a valuable option and that we can have greater growth here. So thank you for that. I apologize for the technical error, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you for your presentation. You know, it's kind of uncanny in the fact that it was a very nice weekend here, and I don't think anybody can argue with that. And the real estate agents across West Niagara, especially I've just noticed in the Smithville area, had many open houses. And the amount of traffic on the Sunday from these open houses was just incredible. And we had one open house in my subdivision, but the amount of traffic, you can just tell. It's the cars driving by, and they're doing about 10 kilometers an hour, and their head's on a swivel. They're looking left, looking right, and you know that they're sizing up the community, and they're looking for that next real estate sign. So very much, better promotion of Niagara is needed. I know that many of the builders in the house, and I'm looking at them right now, do an excellent job of promoting West Lincoln. I know as you're coming out of Hamilton, you see many signs along Centennial Parkway and Regional Road 20 leading into Smithville. And as well, you see many good articles in the newspaper too. So, Phil, if you're going to be asking the Niagara home builders, please ask the Hamilton home builders too as well. Some of the builders in this room that belong to the Hamilton home builders, and they'll help you out with the marketing and promotion of it too as well. But very good presentation. Councillor, is there any questions for Mr. Lambert? No? Okay. Thanks, Phil, for your presentation.
Thank you.
We'll move on to D, Mr. John Arians from the IBI Group. He's here to support of planning recommendations relating to the Smithville Urban Boundary Study. Welcome, John.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for approving my delegation request. This is one day I'm glad I came low-tech, no PowerPoint. I'm just here to speak to you this evening. So I'm here on behalf of a prominent developer in the Smithville area, and we're here to outline our support for the Urban Boundary Initiative that was presented to Planning Committee. I could not make the Planning Committee meeting, and I understand Ms. Bonamici from my office was here and made a presentation in support. Let me start off by saying that this is not a new matter that is facing this municipality. In fact, I can go back to 2008, 2009, which was Regional Official Plan Amendment number 3, and with all due respect to Phil and my colleagues at the region, it was before his time really at the region, and that particular regional plan amendment dealt with a growth management strategy which virtually ignored the township of West Lincoln. The region at that time had this Grow South initiative, where Fort Erie and municipalities at the southern end of the region were the preferred growth areas, and Grimsby, Smithville, town of Lincoln were really not part of that growth management strategy. That was appealed by this township. It was also appealed to the Ontario Municipal Board by my developer clients. In fact, Brian and I were chatting earlier this week. We even submitted regional official plan amendments to expand Smithville. The township did that, and my client did that as well. So all along, we've been in sync dealing with growth management. Ultimately, that ended up in a settlement, which was known as the swap. And you'll recall the swap where we basically reshuffled the deck for urban lands, and we were able to expand Smithville with a small amount. I think it was about 60 hectares. That swap was meant to be an interim solution, while the region basically got their growth management strategy in order. And thanks to Phil and thanks to Reno, that Grow South mentality has been shifted. The regional ship is now turning where the market really is driven, and that is northwest Niagara. And the township of West Lincoln, you're certainly poised to accommodate significant growth. And in fact, this municipality is on record of supporting a population increase of approximately 30,000 residents. That's almost doubling your current population. So then the question is, where and how are we going to grow? And we know that there's intensification opportunities. We know there's infilling opportunities. Your downtown certainly is a prime candidate. But at the same time, there will be an urban boundary expansion to accommodate that additional 15 to 16,000 persons. And yes, Councillor Rayner's not here, unfortunately. It will result in a loss of farmland. But that's part of the balancing act that you as councillors have to do. There's a loss of farmland, but there's also now the ability to create, and as Phil mentioned, the complete community. And a complete community is one where we have a full range of housing opportunities for all income levels, including seniors, including apartments, including townhouses, singles, semis, that whole full range. It includes full commercial services and medical, professional offices. There's no reason to go to Hamilton or to go to St. Catharines when you've got that complete community here. And it also includes a full range of employment and homes for employees. It's part of that mix. So the most important thing, in my opinion, is that it allows you to remain affordable for all income groups. And I think that's a key component, because when you've got a limited housing supply, just look at the town of Grimsby. They're completely surrounded by the escarpment and the provincial greenbelt. They can't expand anymore. The price of housing has gone through the roof in Grimsby. There's no supply. It's just very unfortunate. So we are in support of this initiative that your planning committee endorsed, which is to start the requisite studies to deal with urban boundary expansion. The key question, of course, is who pays for this growth and who pays for these studies? And the simple answer is the development industry pays for them. Certainly, development pays its own way. There are area-specific development charges. If a pumping station needs upgrading, if a water main needs upgrading, the development industry pays for that. And when we deal with studies such as the one Mr. Treble is recommending, that can also be covered in an area-specific development charge. So if it's a $120,000 planning study, those costs are then spread out over the growth area. So this is indeed a very exciting time for this municipality. As planners, this is what we strive for. It's the ability to create that complete community. It's that ability to to balance intensification with infilling to support the downtown and also creating a more complete Smithville urban area. My only regret, members of council, is that I probably won't be here to see the fruits of that. As you're aware, I've done a lot of development work here in Niagara. I've done a lot in Grimsby. I've done a lot in West Lincoln. But this is a long process. It's a 10-year plan. It's a 15-year plan. It's not going to be implemented overnight. So it's a long-range study. The Regional Growth Management Strategy now recognizes the true potential for this municipality, and adopting this report really sets you on the right path towards making the right decisions on how best to accommodate that growth. So we're in full support, and we respectfully ask Council to also endorse the recommendations of your Planning Committee. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Members of council, is there any comments or questions for Mr. Arians from the IBI group at this time? Councillor Chichuk?
My donut just fell off. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Mr. Arians, for coming forward with that today, and I find your comments absolutely on the mark. I know that developers in this room and members of council, including myself, have had a number of discussions over the past number of weeks, and I'm glad that you brought into play the various items that we have to consider and the clarity around what it is that we need to do as we move forward. And I think a number of people have talked. You mentioned about the fact that the region and the municipality were at odds the last time there was planning, and so I'm glad to hear that you realize that and that we have to be very careful as we move forward. So I liked your comments. I liked what you said, and as I said at planning, I'm not against growth. What I am is measured, and I want to be careful because it's a very fine line. We have the responsibility of the existing community as well as that of our future community. So I'll be saying a little bit more on that, but I'm very glad you came forward. I'm very glad for your comments. Those are the kind of things, working with the industry to complete our community are the most important words you probably said, because growth in itself doesn't pay. Residential houses don't pay for themselves, and I think you and I have had that discussion before. So we're looking for those other attributes that enhance and balance
Exactly.
the scale so that our tax base has the ability with commercial, industrial, and residential properties. So I look forward to working with the development community in the months to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? John, I just have one kind of question, kind of comment for you. So you talk about the requisite studies. Talk to council about how those studies have changed, if they've changed, over the last 8 to 10 years. Is it more studies that we have to do now? Is it about the same, little less?
So,
Think back to 2007.
So, Mr. Mayor, the studies are fairly straightforward. We're dealing with an urban expansion into an agricultural area. So what is the impact on agriculture? Are there livestock barns? You may recall Glenn Barker did an initial overview of urban boundary expansion, so that needs to be updated. So the impact on agricultural has to be known. The impact on natural heritage facilities, provincially significant wetlands, environmentally sensitive areas has to be evaluated so that we avoid development which would impact those. Brent's here, or he was here. Where did he go? Dealing with servicing, of course, is a key component. Where is there infrastructure capacity? Where are there infrastructure constraints? And how best can we maximize the capacity and minimize those constraints? That's an important consideration. And then, of course, transportation. From a road network standpoint, what's the best area to develop? Do we have creek crossings? Do we have, major highway issues? Transit, or not transit for this municipality, but transmission corridors are an important consideration. So all of those factors are partly completed already with the Glenn Barker work from previously. For other areas, it needs to be started afresh. And that's what Mr. Treble has done. He's outlined those reports and studies. And actually, the first thing I understand are going to be meetings with the landowners to start deciding who's going to be paying for these studies. And those meetings are starting tomorrow, in fact. So the studies are fairly basic. Do your homework. where's the best area to expand? And you recall in the swap, when we did the swap, I referred to it as a beauty contest in the sense that there was multiple developers. But I think in this instance, the land area that we're talking about to accommodate the population growth is fairly significant. And it'll be in the north, and it'll be in the north, like the southwest. It'll be in the southeast. So I think it'll be all-encompassing, and it won't be as much as the development industry saying, pick me, pick me. It'll be more broader in scale.
And thank you for those comments, and also the fact that, we will be also considering extra employment lands to reach that number of approximately 8,300 jobs by the year 2041 too as well.
As Councillor Chichok indicated, that's that balancing act. It's not just pure residential, it's employment, it's commercial, service commercial, institutional as well. We just opened a new Catholic school. There will be other new schools that will be needed, and it's that broad, comprehensive planning that we're going to initiate. We're not making any decisions tonight. It's just to get the study started.
And also the very fact that right now the region is undergoing their MCR, their Municipal
Yes.
Comprehensive Review. How we go, how we grow, and how we flow is influential in determining where growth is going to be
That's right.
also in Niagara.
And you're bang on when you say about, we should also be talking to the Hamilton home builders, because clearly we've got that influence extending from,
Right.
not just Bimbrook, but Elfrida and Upper Stony Creek as well. It's all coming this way. And West Lincoln, you're perfectly poised because there's no Greenbelt plan. There's no Niagara Escarpment. We don't have a lake constraining us. You're virtually, able to accommodate the growth that this council desires,
Right,
as opposed to wearing handcuffs from day one.
right.
So it's an enviable position.
And I like your comment in the fact that this is not going to happen overnight, that this is going to be a process, and we're merely just at the beginning of this process.
That's true.
Tip of the iceberg. Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Okay. Seeing no other questions or comments for Mr. Arians, we will now move on. We'll move on to confirmation of minutes, council minutes, regular, read September 25th, 2017. Confidential minutes are under separate cover. Councillor Bilesma, you have that resolution, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ganan. That the minutes of the open session portion of the September 25th regular council meeting be accepted. That the confidential minutes related to the closed session portions of the September 25th, 2017 regular council meeting be accepted, and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Bilesma and seconded by Councillor Ganan. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we'll move on to be public meetings under the Planning Act, October 10, 2007 minutes. Councillor Ganan, you have that resolution, please.
Yes, I do. Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Bilsma that the minutes of the public meeting held on October 10th, 2017, under Section 34 of the Planning Act, with respect to A, zoning bylaw amendment, Cynthia Hutt and Henry Popolak, file number 1601-012-17, be accepted.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Ganan and seconded by Councillor Bilesma. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none at this time, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Yep. Okay, we'll move on to communications. And we're just going to wait for the clerk to bring in Ms. Suzanne Craig. She's the Township of West Lincoln's Integrity Commissioner. She will be present for a presentation of Code of Conduct report. This is a Town of West Lincoln Code of Conduct complaint, number 0117. This report presents the final findings of her investigation under the Township of West Lincoln Code of Conduct, otherwise known as the Code, relating to the conduct of Councillor Dave Bilesma, the respondent, in connection with a complaint raising 4 issues. Councillor Bell, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Trombetta. Whereas the Integrity Commissioner for the Township of West Lincoln was called upon to investigate the conduct of Councillor Dave Bylsma, in connection with a complaint rising from 4 issues. Number 1, the allegation that on January 23rd, 2017, the respondent knowingly set out to maliciously and falsely divide the community by making the claim to have no knowledge about what has been going on with the township MERS project, not having the opportunity to speak about the project despite the respondent being a township elected official since October 28, 2014, when he was elected, and having stated he took part in relevant conversations evident by recorded votes. Number 2, that the allegation that the respondent made statements that were known to be false and misleading. Number 3, the allegation that the respondent, through his action, had committed nothing less than premeditated character assassination which harmed the complainant's family, the mayor, and all of council through his actions. Number 4, the allegations that the respondent named 4 of 5 council members who were at the January 19, 2017 Recreation Committee meeting and falsely accused them of wrongdoing. And whereas the report of the Integrity Commission presented on October 23, 2017 has found that Councilor Dave Bylsma did breach Section 4 and under the key principles of the code conduct at the January 2017 council meeting, which provides as follows. Members are responsible to make honest statements, and no member shall make a statement when they know that the statement is false or with the intent to mislead other members or the public. And whereas the report of the Integrity Commissioner presented on October 23, 2017 recommends the following. Number 1, that council impose a penalty of reprimand on Councilor Bylsma in respect of his comments made at the January 2017 council meeting, and that Councilor Bylsma publicly apologized to Councilor Bell for the comments he made and directed to Councilor Bell at January 2017 council meeting with respect to transgression of the rules of the Municipal Act and misleading the public in respect of what opinion or opinions were duly approved under the consideration of the Township Council.
Sorry, Counselor, that's what option or options?
I'm sorry, options. Apologize.
That's okay.
Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Municipal Council of the Corporation of the Township of West Lincoln as follows. The Councilor Dave Bylsma be formally reprimanded by breaching Section 4 of the key principles of the Code of Conduct, which requires members to make honest statements and refrain from making a statement when they know the statement is false or with the intent to mislead other members or the public, and that Councilor Bylsma publicly apologized to Councilor Bell for the comments he made and directed to Councilor Bell at the January 2017 council meeting with respect to transgressions of the rules of the Municipal Act and misleading the public in respect of what option and options were duly approved under the consideration by the Township Council.
Thank you. Councilors, before I read this resolution, I want to just identify Ms. Suzanne Craig in the crowd, sitting in the front left. She's the Integrity Commissioner for the Township of West Lincoln. And I want to just make a quick note that Ms. Craig will only answer process complaints and will not respond to questions regarding the investigation, councilors. So, moved by Councilor Bell and second by Councilor Trombetta. I will not read this out again. You have heard the whereas, both 1, 2, 3, and then now for it be resolved. And the to that's, and the comment that Councilor Bell has read out, or the resolution that Councilor Bell has read out. At this time, is there any questions or comments, noting that Councilor Bylsma has declared conflict of interest on this report? Councilor Trombetta.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I can, maybe if I can possibly direct my questions to Mrs. Craig. Thank you for coming this evening. I just would like to know why the process from January 23rd to today's date has transpired and that lengthy process has transpired. If you could maybe fill members of council and the mayor.
Through your worship to Councillor Trombetta, I have a prescribed timeframe within which I'm supposed to investigate and report to the complainant and the respondent. In this particular case, there was some difficulty in the respondent providing me with comments back. I decided to err on the side of caution to ensure that Councillor Bylsma was able to comment and at least know that there was a complaint against him. While I do have a prescribed format that I have to follow, I do not want ever for a member of council to not know the case against them and not have an opportunity. So this should have been wrapped up much before. There was some difficulty in communication.
So, sorry, Mr. Mayor, through you to Mrs. Craig. So you're stating that there was no communication received back to you from the councillor in regards to this that has came forward since January?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. To be clear, I did speak with Councillor Bylsma. He did not initially respond to my request for comment. My understanding is there was some miscommunication, lack of availability of internet, etc., and so he was not able to initially respond to my request for comments. I waited. When I did not receive further commentary from him, I decided to go forward with my investigation and finalize. I communicated with the complainant to ensure that there were no errors or omissions. I, again, sought out the respondent to provide comments, as is the requirement under your protocol, and did not receive any. My understanding is, again, there were some issues with internet connections.
Thank you, Mrs. Craig. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to also add in there, and thank you for your time, Mrs. Craig, that not only I see that the decisions have been made by Mrs. Craig to formally apologize, and that Councillor Bell apologized to Councillor Bylsma apologized to Mr. Bell, and that a penalty of reprimand be in. But I also think that the residents of West Lincoln deserve an apology, Mr. Mayor, not just to Councillor Bell, because obviously the findings have to do with also the statements that were forthcome by Councillor Bylsma, that the residents have been affected as well, especially in his ward and the residents of West Lincoln. So I think they're too are owed an apology with this apology that is asked upon by Mrs. Craig, Mr. Mayor. So I would like to see that also in this, if we could possibly add that a formal apology to the residents of Ward 2, his ward, and the residents of West Lincoln.
I will be reading out a formal reprimand in a second if council votes in favor. I will suggest to you, council, that on page 68 of the report, which is the very last page, Appendix 1, there is a criteria for an apology, and it reads as, number 1, acknowledge the findings of the Integrity Commissioner in the report. It acknowledged that the allegations that Councillor Bell had transgressed the rules of Municipal Act and had supported and or directed the distribution of misleading advertisements and flyers to the public were without foundation. That's number 1. Number 2 is acknowledge the harm caused by the action and utterances. 3 is take responsibility for the actions and the utterances. 4 is a statement of regret, and 5 is a statement that these type of utterances will not occur again. This is outlined by the Integrity Commissioner to help and to aid in the councillor or councillors at any given time who are in this process to put out a proper apology. And I want to thank Ms. Craig for doing that. That's full disclosure. And in actual fact, I'm not sure if this is every Integrity Commission's way of doing things, but if this is yours, I truly commend that you put forth the criteria for an apology. So I would humbly submit, from what I'm hearing from you, Councillor Trombetta, that Councillor Bylsma, when you're looking at Appendix 1 for criteria, if and when you give an apology, that you consider what Councillor Trombetta has said as number 6. Okay? And that hasn't been determined just yet, but I'll just put that out there. Okay, thank you, Councillor Trombetta. Any other comments or questions? No, I see none. So I will call the vote at this time. Again, moved by Councillor Bell and second by Councillor Trombetta. All those in favor? And it is carried. Okay, so we will move on to the formal reprimand. Councillor Bosma? It does say that in accordance with the recommendations of the Integrity Commissioner contained in the report, that this evening was duly received, considered, and adopted by the Council of the Township of West Lincoln. On behalf of Council, I hereby formally reprimand you for having breached the Code of Conduct and for making dishonest statements regarding Councillor Bell. I will provide you with 30 days to publicly apologize to Councillor Bell. You may apologize this evening or at any upcoming council or standing committee meeting during the month of November. If you do not apologize within 30 days, council will revisit the issue at a future meeting. Do you understand that, Councillor? Okay, thank you. Okay, we shall move on. Next on the agenda is the mayor's remarks. And, yes, sir? Mrs. Craig, thank you so much for your assistance in this matter, and do have a safe drive home. Thank you. Thank you, Council. Okay, so here are the mayor's remarks for the month of October 2017, and they're a little bit lengthy, so bear with me. On October 11th, I was much honored to MC the Wellandport Library groundbreaking ceremony held out at the Wellandport Community Center. And whereas the West Lincoln Library Board wanted to make this groundbreaking ceremony a community groundbreaking ceremony, the entire community was invited to help celebrate and participate in by bringing to the ceremony their very own shovel and spade. For a little background information, in April of this year, the West Lincoln Library Board announced that they would be making improvements to the Wellandport Library and Community Centre with the support of up to $440,000 in funding through the Government of Canada's Canada 150 Community Funding Initiative, delivered by the Federal Economic Development Agency. And with this Federal Economic Development Agency Canada 150 Community Funding, try and say that 3 times fast, the Library Board will use the funding to make this facility accessible, which includes renovating and expanding the library to approximately 3,000 square feet, and adding accessible washrooms and doors in order to be AODA compliant. Our environmental improvements will include installing a new roof, a new furnace, and new windows using daylight principles. And lastly, the space will also feature an indoor-outdoor community living room and an Indigenous medicine and food garden. So, very, very exciting times for the Wellandport Library branch and the fine residents of Wellandport, and many thanks to the Government of Canada for their Canada 150 community funding. Second, on October 15th to the 21st of this year, that was the BDC Small Business Week celebration all across Canada. And what is BDC Small Business Week? Well, it is an annual celebration of entrepreneurship that was officially launched across Canada back in 1991 in the Fraser Valley. Well, this year, as they do every year, saw the West Lincoln Chamber of Commerce hold their very own Small Business Week breakfast at the Smithville Christian High. At the Small Business Week breakfast, merchants had the opportunity to listen to 4 guests, and I will state those 4 guests. David Sortis is from the Business Development Bank of Canada, otherwise known as the BDC. Ms. Marlene Bergsma was there representing the Smithville Christian High School. Sherry Kane from the West Niagara Palliative Care Services. And Phil and Brian Owens representing Kerman Car Wash and our very own Smithville Car Wash. And yes, it is coming to Highway 20 in the near future. So this Small Business Week celebration, sponsored by the BDC, sees 10,000 entrepreneurs come together every year at hundreds of events across Canada to learn, network with other entrepreneurs, and celebrate entrepreneurship. West Lincoln Chamber, job well done. Next, I'd like to remind West Lincoln residents that we have volunteer position openings for 2 of our subcommittees. The first committee is a brand new committee, and it's called our Age-Friendly Advisory Committee, and it will be chaired by Councillor Ganan. And its mandate is to provide input and suggestions to Township of West Lincoln Council and staff on matters and initiatives aimed at making the township a more age-friendly community and enabling all residents and visitors to participate as full and meaningful community members. The second committee is a fully functional subcommittee already, but we are looking for some new members to fill some holes, and that our Township of West Lincoln Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, or otherwise known as MIAC. Interested students may submit their application to Ms. Jackie Thrower, confidential secretary for the Township of West Lincoln, and a copy of the application and/or the terms of reference for MIAC may be downloaded from the Township's websites. And lastly, as many of you already know, I am proud to be a Board of Director member of the Kristen French. Sorry, I missed the page. I want to go back and talk about a couple of things that are of a sadder nature. I would like this time to report on and talk about the recent deaths of 2 former West Lincoln politicians and 1 former prominent shop owner who helped her husband run a dry goods store here in Smithville for many years. First, Mr. Allard Kaline, a former mayor and alderman for the Township of West Lincoln, passed away peacefully at Shalom Manor in Grimsby on Monday, September 25th. Allard enjoyed serving his community as an alderman and a mayor and on the boards of the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital and Shalom Manor. He will be missed by his friends and his numerous family members. Second, I am sad to report that former resident and alderman for the Township of West Lincoln, Mrs. Joanne Hamilton, at the age of 78, now from Randleman, North Carolina, passed away peacefully at her home on Thursday, October 19th. And I know there are many people in this room who would remember Alderman Joanne Hamilton. And thirdly, many West Lincoln residents will be sad to know that Ms. Blanche Magder passed away at her home on West Street on Tuesday, October 17th, in her 100th year. Blanche Magder was the beloved wife of the late Jack Magder, and as many of you know, they ran Magder's dry goods store in Smithville for many years together. Blanche will be forever missed by her boy, and that's exactly what she called him, her boy, Mark Gollum, and her many family and friends over the years. Just this summer, I presented Blanche with a certificate of recognition for turning 100 years young from the Township of West Lincoln, and Blanche was looking as dapper as ever, but unfortunately, her eyesight and her health were failing. God bless her. And lastly, as many of you already know, I'm proud to be a Board of Director member of the Kristen French Child Advocacy Center for Niagara. Last week at our second annual Kristen French Spotlight Gala, we were honored to have Mr. Sheldon Kennedy as our guest speaker. It was an absolute pleasure to meet and listen to Sheldon's journey. Sheldon is best known for his courageous decision to charge his major junior hockey lead coach with sexual assault over a 5-year period while he was a teenager under his care. Through Sheldon's disclosure and the important work that he continues to do, Sheldon Kennedy has become an inspiration to millions of survivors around the world. Sheldon Kennedy is the lead director of the Sheldon Kennedy Child Advocacy Center out west in Calgary, Alberta. Which brings me to the reason why I'm wearing this purple t-shirt here tonight. Tomorrow, October 24th, is Child Abuse Prevention Day. And I wear this purple t-shirt to remind folks that we need to break the silence about child abuse in our communities and speak up for our kids. Every October, child advocacy centers and the Children's Aid Society raise awareness about how to identify and how to help prevent child abuse. And as part of this campaign, child advocacy centers and Children's Aid Society work very closely together with school boards and community partners on a provincial dress purple day. That's what they call it. And so please, ladies and gentlemen, wear something purple tomorrow in hopes of starting up a conversation about preventing child abuse. And remember, it takes a village to keep kids safe. Ladies and gentlemen, those are my remarks for the month of October. Thank you. We will now move on to report of committee, which 10A is the Planning, Building, Environmental Committee. October 10, 2007 minutes. Confidential minutes are under separate cover. Councillor Chichak, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ganan that the minutes of the open session portion of October 10th, 2017 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted and recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of item P114-17 and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the October 10th, 2017 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with the exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Privacy Act.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution. Moved by Councillor Chichak and seconded by Councillor Ganan. Is there any questions or comments? I will turn to Councillor Chichok first, please.
Mr. Mayor, that puts all of the minutes with regard to the Planning Committee forward for approval. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my computer. Anyway, except for the one item that will be read separately here. I have it to read secondly. So that is just mainly the minutes of planning. And I'll put this one forward. I wanted to pull it because I did want to speak to the urban expansion. And I have an amendment, which I hope my friends on council will at least hear before we vote on the item.
So Councillor Chichok, I'm allowing you at this time to bring forward your amendment to item P14. Is this not the time? Madam Clerk. And then speak to the amendment and then the original motion as amended. Okay.
No, it's not original. You're pulling all the rest of the minutes are okay.
Yes, okay. That the minutes of the open session portion of the October 10, 2017 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted and the recommendation contained therein be approved with the exception of item P 114-17 and that the confidential minutes relating to the closed session portion of the October 10, 2017 Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting be accepted and that the minutes remain confidential and restricted from public disclosure in accordance with exemptions provided in the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Any questions or comments about that? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, Councillor Chichok, you have pulled with the exception of item P114-17.
That is correct,
This
Mr.
is the
Mayor.
time to speak about it.
Actually, I'm going to put it on the table first, Mr. Mayor, moved by
Okay.
myself and seconded by Councillor Trombetta, that item P114-17 from the October 10th, 2017 Planning and Building Environmental Committee meeting be approved. That report PD 139-17 regarding the Smithville Urban Expansion Project dated October 10th, 2017 be received, and that the township staff be advised to proceed forward with the draft timeline, process, study area, terms of reference, and to work jointly with the regional staff to establish a budget for the entire work plan and report back to a future Planning, Building, Environmental Committee meeting, and that the staff be authorized to meet with and brief the public at an open house public consultation session in late October, and that the staff be authorized to coordinate the meeting prior to ratification by Township Council. That's the original motion, Mr. Mayor. It's on the table, and I would like to speak to it at the appropriate time, which is now.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Chichok and second by Councillor Trombetta. Questions or comments? Councillor Trombetta?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh. All right, Rob.
Can I speak to that, the original motion from planning? Mr.
Yes, because that's all we've heard so
Yeah,
far.
which I'd like to. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During the planning meeting, Mr. Mayor, I was good with this motion, and I'm still good with the motion. You know, I'm sitting here, and like I said, we've, before me, my mother was here, and we believe in urban expansion in this community. We believe in creating jobs for kids for the future. My kids go to go to school in this community, and I live in this community, and I want to see the community expand, and I hope it does. I hope I can see it in my lifetime. I know Mr. Arian said he can't see it in his lifetime, but hopefully I'll be able to see it in professional lifetime. But I hope I could see it in my lifetime. I hope we do some good work, and I want to commend our planning director for bringing this forward to us. Done a good job in that, and I'm happy to see it go forward in the correct areas of this municipality, Mr. Mayor. So I just wanted to add to that, and I'll leave it open to any of my colleagues at the table if they want to add to that. But that's how I feel strongly, and I agree with what we did on planning, and hope it stays the same. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor, for those comments. Councillor Bosma?
Thank you very much. I'd like to express my desire for growth, but I'd probably just qualify it by saying responsible growth. This community is a long-established community. There's a lot of stakeholders in the residents that reside in the rural areas of the region who also they're not being displaced, that they're not displaced, that they retain because some of the farms and the residents have been here for 4 or 5 and longer generations. And I just, you know, at this time, I'm not a growth for the sake of growth kind of person. I like to see measured, responsible growth that reflects and respects all the people of the town, and especially the people of the town, the people that live here already, that are already currently residing here, that their wishes be first and foremost. We owe them the largest gratitude for their building the foundation on which we add, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ganad?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I actually want to go back a little bit to what Mr. Arians had to say. I have found in all the reading that I've been doing in the last little while a mixture and kind of a disconnect between what the real estate are saying in terms of looking at retirees and those sorts of people, empty nesters coming, and the fact that we have all these various businesses now with hiring signs everywhere. So my comments in preparation for tonight were to talk about that a little bit more and to ask some more questions about that. But I was a little bit reassured in your comments tonight about the development community looking fully at a complete community, including affordable housing for those people who might be working at a lower pay level than the young professionals that we're talking about encouraging. Like, there's a little bit of a disconnect between all the things that various people are saying, and I think we have to be very mindful of that. Yes, we want people to come, but we certainly want something for everyone in terms of housing opportunities as well. And so I feel a little bit reassured by your comments about what the development community is sort of looking at in that regard as well. So thank you for that. And
Can I just clarify one thing, Councillor Ganad?
Absolutely.
You're absolutely correct that Mr. Arians did say that. On the one point, it was actually Mr. Lambert who said that we had a group of economists come into the Niagara region and tell us that, you know, the baby boomer generation, even though they're moving into the community, they come with a good hefty amount of wealth. I think that's what you had said there about that you started in the beginning.
well, that's a major concern, and it's not the concern that they aren't coming with money to spend. My concern is that the general feeling of the public around is that, you know, why are we even looking at new schools? Why were we looking at MERS? Why were we looking at anything that we're potentially looking at when we're only getting retirees coming this way? And so I think people need to understand that that's not all that we're looking at, but we're certainly looking at making sure that young families also come, but that there is affordable housing for those younger people to come in as well. So thank you.
Very good. And I didn't mean to contradict you on what you said, just as to that Mr. Lambert was talking about the economist who came to regional council. That's all. Okay, very good. Point well taken. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to it? Councillor Chichuk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for bringing Mr. Lambert. And I know that there's been quite a stir in the community at large about me thinking or reflecting before I would approve going forward with growth. But as I said at planning, I'm not against growth. But we need to be measured as the implications of what we are doing here will have implications for the next 25 years. And maybe some of us in our professional capacity won't get to see it happen, as has been said tonight, but I hope that many of us do get to see it come to fruition. I worry that we make sure that we do things in a measured way, because in future, the OMB may not be there for us to appeal our needs to. And at the last growth opportunity, as been mentioned tonight by some of the development community itself, the province and this municipality found itself at odds with the region, costing this municipality, I believe, I heard from staff, approximately $200,000 in order to come up with a method of satisfying the growth. And it was our community, our staff, who came up with the swap decision. The stakeholders will no doubt have their own ideas, and the region may have its own interest, which will be different to West Lincoln. And I hope that while we move forward together with the region and the stakeholders, that we keep our own legal and planning professional staffs so that if the need be, we can take our decisions to keep our community complete and our community strong in a direction that serves both our existing and future communities. I will support growth that is done after careful consideration of the entire community. At this moment, neither the region, and this has been brought up this evening, or ourselves have completed our studies to the July information issued by the province that was the update to the growth plan. So,
Sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
neither the region or the municipality have completed their compliance exercise. I believe, Mr. Mayor, you in fact said we're in the middle of it at the region. So, and as did a couple of the other speakers. So my point is, there's nothing to appeal at this point by the developers. So now is the time for us to carefully think through in a collaborative fashion with stakeholders, while we, the municipality, and our hired appropriate external resources go through an entirety of studies to ensure that we do this and we do it well and right for completion, etc. I will support growth that is inclusive of the entire community in design charrettes and completing our communities. Many of the speakers tonight have talked about that. At this point in time, the meeting that will take place tomorrow is for the stakeholders and not the community at large. So what we need to do in the future is to make sure that those members of the community that are here have some say in what it's going to look like, how it will come, and to voice their concerns of the issues that have to be dealt with. I'll support collaboration with the region, but as I said, we need to continue to have our own legal and planning advice. I'll support growth, and I will tonight, Mr. Mayor, and I want to have fulsome growth, complete growth, where growth will have a chance to pay for growth, because just having unbridled growth that is purely residential, regardless of the mix of product, that will not bring sufficient tax revenues in to this community to protect and to make for affordable housing as well as affordable taxes into the future. So, Mr. Mayor, maybe some of what it is that I wanted to say in putting forward an amendment has been said. I didn't do any of this to be offensive. What I did was to try and bring a clearer understanding. And I've had great opportunity to talk with a number of the people that are sitting in this room, and I don't think they would take offense. It's my understanding, nor should my colleagues, and I appreciate that. Because it would be my desire to put forward the amendment moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ganan, that a recommendation contained in PD 139-17 regarding Smithville urban expansion be amended to add the following new sections 5, 6, 7, and 8. And that is, that it is clear and understood by all parties that this urban growth project and the cost of all required studies now being conducted jointly with the stakeholders and in consultation with the region be included in area-specific development charge, with the stakeholders being required to front-end the studies. Financial arrangements will be outlined in agreements to be defined in the near future. And that in accordance with Regional Staff Report PDS 37-2016, that the targeted growth numbers be used as the basis for the work are set at 29,460 residential and 95,60 jobs in West Lincoln to 2041, even though the region has not concluded their growth study exercise, and that this urban growth project and related studies shall include a focus on growing Smithville as a complete community with a focus on infill and intensification, with special attention given to downtown Smithville as well as addressing the existing needs of rural West Lincoln, and that a comprehensive plan to include the entire community, stakeholders, members of the public, and politicians be developed and brought back to committee for approval. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak to that.
Go ahead, Councillor.
There's a lot of what was said in there that was not in the motion, and we'll have time to come back to go into receiving reports from staff. But if we set out at the get-go what it is that this council is doing, we won't have any questions or any doubt around what it is that we're trying to do. We want our downtown finished. All these things are what this council and committees have asked for. We've wanted to have everyone involved, and I gave you the motion, so I've got to look now. Hold on.
Here, I'll give it back to you.
Thanks. Now, thank you. Now, the two. Stereo, that the growth project is going to be, the costs of which are being borne by the development community, and that we're going to use the 29,460 and the 9,560, because even at those numbers, our region has to de-designate approved urban areas within other municipalities, and those municipalities have to concede and give up approved urban lands for us to get to that number. So that could be a fight we may have at the region. You'll be carrying the crossbars there, but in fact, even to get to that, never mind any further, we are going to have to work, the region's going to have to work diligently to get that reallocation of numbers around. I'm confident that it'll all happen, but what I don't want anyone to come back and say to us is, you guys did your studies, and now you've only got 18,000 people, or you've got 36,000. But whatever it is, we need to have everybody in this room willing to work with us from here on in and to work with the best information we have, because the studies that will conclude this and align us to the region and ourselves to the growth plan issued by the province are not as yet complete. So we're taking a bit of a leap, but hopefully any studies that are done will only have tweaking to do to them when the reports are completed in the near future by the region and when ours is completed. So, Mr. Mayor, the reason for that clarity that I have in item 5 to 8 should not, in fact, it is not at discord with the first 4 amendments. It is merely to add clarity to the work that we need to undertake and to the understanding the development industry, the landowners, and the public of West Lincoln will have as we move forward with these opportunities to define how we will grow. And that is really all I have to say at this moment, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Before I go for comments or questions from the rest of council, I just want to quite simply look at your number 6. It does say for basis of this work is set at 29,460. I would agree with that because that is in the report on page 2. But where I do have problem is that you have a number there of 9,560, whereas the report only says 8,280 jobs. Can you tell us where you got that
Mr.
from?
Mayor, I actually had a lot of help from our staff doing this, so I do have to agree that as I read that out tonight, I wasn't sure if the number was the correct one, but I stand to be corrected. And I take full responsibility for it. I should have read
That's
it.
okay. Let's just ask our Director of Planning what the proper number is going to be, or should be.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad you raised that because I was hoping to get the opportunity to speak to it anyway. The staff report on page 2 that was presented to Planning Committee actually has an error in it. That number of 8,280 on page 2 in the background section is the 2036 number. The 2041 number is the 9,560 that is in the recommendation tonight. So the correct number is before you tonight.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Mr. Trouble. Thank you.
Questions or comments? I see Councillor Bosma and then Councillor Bell. Councillor Bosma?
Thank you very much. It is, I do have a concern, and it is with number 6 and the numbers that are presented. And I know we're at an initial junction. We're initiating this, and I'm just a little concerned about stating our numbers up front. I notice it's a regional staff report that's recommending these numbers, and I don't know the fulsome discussion and study that's gone into that work. I'm not privy to the background of all of the crunching that goes on behind that. But I'm just wondering the wisdom of stating that up front. Does that bind us legally in any way, shape, or form? That's my one concern that I'd like to have answered. The other question is what kind of flexibility is in those numbers? That's another question that I have. And then probably the third one is what input do the residents of this municipality have in these numbers? What my concern is that we're defining something quite precise at an initial, I guess some of the initial start of all this. I think it's important to do that at some point, but I think there should be a dialogue with the residents of West Lincoln to see if this is something that they're concerned with, these numbers. So if I could just get those first two questions and then my comment supporting what.
So I'm going to ask Mr. Treble to answer those questions, but I'm not being cheeky. I just want to be able to understand your first question about binding and the fact that who will be around here in 25 years to bind us to say, yes, we made it, or yes, we didn't, or yes, we actually surpassed those numbers when the growth policy changes every 4 to 5 years. I just want to be able to have clarification to Mr. Treble on that. I'm asking.
You're
How
asking
can
me.
we bind anybody for
well,
a
I'm-
study that goes to 2041?
And that's my question. How binding are these? Like, if we commit to this today, are we setting a path that somehow can come back to haunt us? Well, you haven't met your targets. We feel like, is there a possibility that a developer could say, well, you're being tardy, you're not in compliance with your own numbers, and there might be reasons why, like you said, future councils might have different ideas about growth, and we know often that target numbers very rarely met. Sometimes they're exceeded. So I'm wondering what kind of commitment, what level of commitment are we making by approving these numbers today? So that's just a
Okay,
question.
so Director Treble, can you give us some answers and clarification on the councilor's questions, please?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. Perhaps I'll go back a few steps here. The province, in releasing the Places to Grow documentation, embarked all of the regions inside the Greater Toronto Hamilton area to take a look at how to plan for growth and prepare to anticipate, I think it was something like 4 million additional people inside the GTHA by 2041. And so rather than reacting at the last minute, the feeling of the province is that we should prepare and sort of get that crystal ball out. So what the province did was they took a look at each of the regions inside that study area and allocated target population and employment numbers to each of the areas. So Halton, Durham, Region, or Peel, Dufferin, all of those areas were assigned numbers. York and places like that are getting a very large number. Region of Niagara's number is a whole lot smaller. But then it was up to each of those regional tier municipalities to allocate how that growth should occur within the lower tier level across the region. And to achieve the numbers that we have been assigned, as has been pointed out, the region did quite an extensive amount of work and did some consultations as well across the region over the last couple of years. So there's been quite a lot of opportunity for people to be involved in providing input to the growth targets, the servicing targets, and the transportation targets, the how we grow, how we flow, and how we go points that, Mr. Mayor, you had referred to earlier. So the numbers haven't just appeared magically overnight. They have been put through the rigor of a public consultation process. What kind of turnout actually showed up from the Smithville or West Lincoln area, I can't say with certainty, but I do know at least one of the consultation sessions did happen in this room over the course of the last few years. So they spread the consultations out, they moved around, they tried to capture all the municipalities at some point in that process. So our target, in order to help the region, is to try and achieve these numbers. How binding are they is an interesting question. I find this somewhat interesting in the sense that here we are doing a mathematical exercise which does assist us in trying to figure out how much land area we need, how much infill intensification we should encourage, and all of that. But at the end of the day, the market is going to have a big factor in all of this, which is out of most of our control sitting on this end of the room. The other end of the room might have more to say in that. But having said that, Mr. Mayor, I guess ultimately we're working to try and provide the opportunities for growth to achieve those numbers. And if we provide the room and the opportunity, then hopefully the market will step in at that point and assist us in getting there. For the region to achieve the targeted numbers across the region, they need West Lincoln. And so that's why I see the benefit of a joint relationship with regional staff and regional council as we move forward and try and achieve the targets that have been provided to us. I don't know if that gives a direct answer to the questions, but maybe it's a start, or maybe it's generated more questions.
And Mr. Tribble, I think that number at 2041 has been established at somewhere around 610,000 for the entire Niagara region. Am I correct in saying that roughly?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, 609,990 by 2041.
Yeah, okay. Are those the answers to your questions?
Well, like Brian, Director Trouble said, it's a start. So we're at the start, and so it's a good place to start.
You know, and it's a start, and it's just a reminder to this council that we did sign that memorandum of understanding, and we sent that, and it was unanimous, and we sent it to the region saying that we do want to go down this road for growth. So, okay, thank you for those questions. Councillor Bell?
Through you, Mayor Joyner, just have a lot of observations over the last little while. Looking back to the meeting on October the 10th, I guess the chair of the Planning and Building Environmental Committee, quite surprised to learn that she voted against the item 114, or pardon me, item PD 139-17 that was brought forward, recommending the urban expansion project. What staff had brought forward was an excellent report. A lot of time had gone into it. There was debate about it that night. There was more than enough opportunity to bring forward amendments, if there should be any. There was none. It was voted on. It did pass. And I guess I look, not just this now, it's had me thinking, and I've seen it. It just, for some reason, no matter what staff brings forward, the chair seems that she has to amend everything that comes forward and have her stamp of approval on it. I really disappointed, because the same chair also chairs our Economic Development Committee, which in over 2 years we haven't moved an inch. And when this come out, that she was opposed to moving this urban expansion forward, I guess it really opened my eyes up to where we have been going and some of the reasons why we're where we are. I can't support the amendment because what's being said, and there's so much what is in the original report. It's there. You know, they talk about the timelines, getting people involved, who's paying for it. At the end of the day, there's 9 different criteria that have to be met. This is a long, slow process. This will be back to the Building and Planning Committee many more times before it ever gets the final approval. And who's to say we're going to be the ones approving it? It's going to be another council down the road that's going to be approving this at the end of the day. I believe that after that vote was taken, a lot of things happened. There was a lot of stuff that hit the fan, and the oars are in the water now. And I can't approve the amendments. I'm sorry. What staff brought forward was very good, and we should be staying with that. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Chichak, I'll give you one chance for rebuttal, and then I'd like to say a few words. Go ahead.
I guess I could say it's a point of personal privilege in that they
That's
don't.
okay. I've given you that privilege already.
It's I don't think that we will do any good to one another, and I appreciate the editorializing and the observations that council colleagues have. I don't want to denigrate this council into that kind of behavior. I chose to make the decision to think through what it was I wanted to do, and I bring them here as I have the right to do. And I am putting forward a motion that I thought, an amendment to the motion that I thought I could speak to tonight. And I would like to ensure that we don't slip into any bad behaviors of thinking we know what's going on in other people's minds or what they're doing. I am doing nothing out of the ordinary that I can do within the rights as a counselor. So I am going to say that I brought forward a motion. If I have brought forward amendments to various other items on council and they have been approved, I guess someone thought they were worth the vote. If I've brought something forward and it didn't get passed, I didn't. I went home and I was the same person the next morning as I was the night before. So I choose to serve this community thoroughly and well. I will make comments and bring forward amendments as I see fit. I chose to bring my amendment here, as I have a right to do. It's here before you. There is everything in the report, but it is not clearly defined as to what is going on. So for clarity, I didn't want any confusion with our public as well as our stakeholders, all landowners. Some of them are developers, some of them are just people sitting on their land. I've certainly had a number of phone calls about people who own land and are worried about where this is going. But if council feels that the report itself in its entirety, and I do not suggest that our staff haven't done an excellent job. In fact, our staff worked with me diligently to put this together. So when there was objection on their behalf, we didn't include it in the motion or the amendment. So if there is a desire not to put that forward, I guess we'll get up tomorrow and we'll deal with the original motion. So mine was purely for additional clarity with the help of our staff, to whom I give great thanks and appreciation for the effort that they put in. So at this point, I think we should move on with the amendment, or, let's talk about ourselves. Let's not talk about each other.
Very good. Thank you for those comments, Councillor. I will weigh in on this. I see no problem with the amendment to item P11417, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I just don't think that they are timely. This is not the report to bring this. In actual fact, Mr. Treble was going to bring another report down the road once he got clarification and ratification on this particular report. So I feel that if this was the intention of these additional items to be included in the recommendation in agenda or in this report, PD 13917, as the chair of the planning department, they should have been added, but they weren't added because it was ahead of the game. These are the types of things that will come later on. And I believe that Mr. Treble has said that he was looking for 1, 2, 3, 4 recommendations in PD 139, that he would be forthcoming with further direction once he got clarification on this. So I have no problem whatsoever with the amendments. I just think they either should have been put in the additional report, PD 13917, or wait until the next report, like Mr. Treble said he was going to do. So, so Council, it will be up to you whether or not you feel that the amendments put forth by Councillor Chichuk are timely and should be added in now, or should wait the next time. And either way, we're not losing because they are good recommendations, amendments to this. I do believe that they're already in the report, but if council or councillors feel that they need to spell it out, then that's fine. But I was hoping and waiting to see this in the next report. So on that, I will call the amendment to item P1417. All those in favor? Hands up high. That loses. And I'll call the original motion as amended. Of just the one we just did? Of the original motion as amended?
It didn't get amended.
Sorry, or the original motion, you're right, it didn't get amended. So do you want a recorded vote on the amendment, Councillor?
No, Mr. Mayor. I wanted a recorded vote. You were calling the original motion. So on
On
the
the
original
original
motion,
motion.
let's do a recorded vote.
Okay, very
Mayor.
good. There you go.
I just wanted to
Oh,
say
yeah,
that.
comments or questions on the original motion? Go ahead, Councillor.
Just actually a correction. Just, you made the comment that it was a unanimous vote, and obviously it wasn't on the memo of understanding. So I just wanted to get for the record that it was not a unanimous vote. There were actually two noes on that vote, and I have it in the minutes that we've already approved.
So,
on-
Councillor, please
yeah.
correct me for the record. What was the vote at that time, please?
It was 5 yes and 2 no.
Thank you, sir. My
Just-
apologies.
No problem.
Okay, let's go with the recorded vote. Madam Clerk?
Councillor Bell?
This is the original motion.
Original motion.
Do you want me to read it out again? Okay, the original motion, moved by Councillor Chichak and second by Councillor Trombetta, that item P14, 11417 from the October 10, 2017 Planning Building Environmental Committee meeting be approved. Item P1417 says, 1, that project PD 13917 regarding the Smithville Urban Expansion Project dated October 10th be received, and that Township 2, that Township staff be authorized to proceed forward with the draft timeline, the process, the study area, the terms of reference, and to work jointly with regional staff to establish a budget for the entire work plan and report back to future Planning, Building, Environmental Committee. And 3, that staff be authorized to meet with and brief the public at an open house public consultation session in late October 2017. And as we know, that's tomorrow. And number 4, that staff be authorized to coordinate the meeting prior to ratification by Township Council. I got Councillor Trombetta first.
Same as planning, correct?
Yeah, same as planning. Identical. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Chichak?
Only one clarification, Mr. Mayor, and this is what I think started to trouble me. And that meeting with the public is not really the public. It was by invitation only, and we could go through you to the planning commissioner or director. But basically, it is the development community that is coming to that and landowners in the areas. So at some point, we're going to bring in the entirety of the public to talk about growth in this community and get their view. So if I'm correct, through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Treble, tomorrow's meeting is not with the public at large and open to the public?
Mr. Treble?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Tomorrow's meeting is an open meeting, so anyone's welcome. But invitations went to all of the 95 property owners inside the study area, as well as a number of consultants that we're aware of that are interested. And certainly down the road, there will be numerous opportunities for input from everybody as we build a complete community.
Numerous. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else on this side, questions or comments? Okay, so I will ask the clerk again to do the recorded vote, please.
Councillor Bell?
In favor?
Councillor Bilsma? Councillor Chichak?
Yes.
Councillor Ganan? Rainer's absent. Councillor Trombetta?
Support.
Mayor Joyner?
In favor.
2, 3, 5 to 1.
So that carries with a vote of 5 yes and 1 nay. Okay, thank you. I will call, nope, it's already carried. Let me sign it. Okay, very good discussion. Thank you, everyone. We will move on to the Administration Finance Fire Committee, October 16, 2017 minutes. Councilor Bell, you have that resolution, please.
I do. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cadan that the minutes of the Administration Finance Fire Committee meeting held on October 16, 2017 be accepted, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of items. And at the appropriate time, I have a motion. Not yet. You tell me one. Okay, you tell me one.
Councilors, you've heard the resolution moved forward by Councillor Bell and second by Councillor Ganan. Is there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. We'll now move on to C, Public Works Recreation Arena Committee, October 16th. Councilor Trombetta, you have that resolution, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Chichek, that the minutes of the Public Works Recreation Committee meeting held on October 16, 2017 be accepted with the recommendations contained therein and be approved with the exception of items.
Okay, councilors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councilor Trombetta and seconded by Councilor Chichuk. Is there any comments, questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Trombetta?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item PW 55-17, item number 2, if I
Okay,
may. And if council needs some clarification, I can state what that item is.
okay.
At the
You're
public-
pulling it for discussion, right?
Pulling it for discussion, yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Just for clarification, on the last Public Works meeting, I did bring up I brought up the point of that a monthly reporting relating to change orders and so on and so forth are being brought forward to this committee. And I was asking council that maybe we should come up a number to when do change orders got to be brought to council. For discussion. I'm going to open up to the table for discussion. I have some comments to add to it and more of my thoughts on where these should go through change orders, or if I would like to maybe see a percentage once we hit the percentage of a contingency, let's say a percentage of 10 or 25%, whatever the case may be, but I have some dialogue around the table, and then that should be brought forward to council once we've tapped into some of that contingency. So that's when I brought that up at Public Works last week. So I will open it up to members of the Horseshoe if they want to add some more comments, or I see our acting CAO has some comments there as well.
Well, we can go to the acting CAO, and then I have Councilor Bell later. Next, please. Thank you, Councilor.
Through you, members of council, if you are pulling that item, it would be appropriate to deal with the minutes and everything else, and then deal with that item. So we should discuss that after we approve these minutes.
Okay, so moved by Councilor Trombetta, second by Councilor Chichuk, that the minutes of the Public Works Recreation Arena Committee meeting held on October 16, 2017 be accepted, and that the recommendations contained therein be approved with the exception of item PW 55-17, item number 2. Seeing no more comments or questions, all those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, I will now go to I've heard from Councilor Trombetta. We'll now go to Councilor Bell on whatever you want to talk about. If you have a motion,
Yeah, I have a-
PW 55 is an exception. So,
I have a motion that moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Bilsma, that the monthly reporting relating to large change orders and the amount remaining in the contingency account for the Wellingport Library and Hall project and the MERS project, referenced under PW 55-17-2, be restricted to the reporting of only large change orders, amounts in excess of $50,000 for the MERS project and $25,000 for the Wellingport Library Hall project.
okay. So you've heard that resolution moved by Councilor Bell and seconded by Councilor Bilsma. As I read it here, it's $50,000 for the MERS project and $25 for the Wellingport Library and Hall project, and those would be the monthly reporting related to large change orders and the amount remaining in the contingency account for both projects. Okay? Is there any comments or question? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We'll now move on to reconsideration. The definition for reconsideration is there for your viewing pleasure, as well as the notice of motion to rescind is also there, the definition. I will say to the Clerk's Department, I think there should be an area on here where it says notice of motion. Do we used to do that? I'm not sure why it's not there anymore. So we'll have that conversation later, Clerk's Department. We'll move on to other business. Members of council remarks. I'll start on my right, your left. Councillor Bell, please. Nothing? Okay, Councillor Balsma. Councillor Gannon.
Just an opportunity to report on the success of the Community Care fundraising dinner.
good.
We fed on Saturday night at the New Ag Society Hall, 223 people.
Wow.
We don't know the grand total yet, but we're hoping it's somewhere between $11,000 and $12,000 range. All the bills need to be paid and all the money needs to be counted, and we still have some money coming in. There were a lot of very generous people who made donations outside of being able to attend the dinner, and so, there's much more money there. Something of note, I think, that the general public might like to know is that there were approximately 18 or 19 people serving tables that night, none of whom were paid. So the fact that the caterer gave them an opportunity to also do some public service in support of West Lincoln Community Care, I thought was a fine thing. So it was all in all a very good night. Thanks.
Councillor, I remember the days, as you do, and many councillors around this horseshoe, that it was hard to get 50 or 60 people to come out to that event, and now we're feeding 223. That's just amazing.
Yeah, and many more tickets could have been sold. We just couldn't keep adding on to the caterer's plate in terms of what we were asking her to do. So very successful.
And with 223 people in the West Niagara Agriculture Hall, could we have put more into it?
If Chris had been able to cater to more people, maybe we could have. The hall itself holds a lot of people.
Yeah.
But the caterer was being asked to do a full course dinner, and
Right.
It was a lovely dinner. She did a wonderful job under the circumstances.
Yeah, yeah.
But, so
Very
a lot
good.
of hard work by a lot of dedicated people to help a lot of people in our community who are in
Absolutely.
need. So
Thank you. Thank you so much. Councillor Chichuk.
Well, I have to agree, Mr. Mayor, and with Councillor Gannon, that was a lovely event. But another opportunity comes to itself, and that is the West Niagara Fair is holding an Oktoberfest this Saturday. And that's between 8 and 12 at the same hall, same hall, and it's $8 per person or 2 for 15. It sounds like a great opportunity to get Oompapa music rather than, in fact, the all things Canadian that happened at our last event. So I think that this community is really starting to pull together and starting to look at opportunities to enjoy each other's company more and more. So I look forward to seeing a lot of you at that. Tickets are available from the West Niagara Fair Committee and a number of people in the community.
Thank you, Councillor. I will just say this. That is a beautiful hall, that West Niagara Egg Center. Has an absolutely stunning kitchen, great acoustics in it, and it is going to be used for many more functions as what you both have just mentioned last week and the one coming up. So, Councillor Trombetta?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I know you noted some passings, but we also all know as Canada we did lose Gordon Downey this week, and I just wanted to mention that I was in a band, and I used to play his cover songs multiple times in a band with my longer hair. And he was a Canadian icon, and he will be missed, especially, traveling and going to many various bonfire parties in this community. And, that music is always, Tragically Hip was always playing at multiple parties. And he was a Canadian icon, and he will be sadly missed.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to add to that. And it touched me. Yeah. I'm not quite sure it touched many Canadians throughout this great country, how much of an icon he was, and he'll be sadly missed.
It was the heartache that just wouldn't go away. It was the passing of Gord Downey, and then we all grieved, and then Friday they came up the special on CTV on Friday night. So Barb and I bawled again on the couch together, and then there was another show on Sunday. We watched that, we bawled some more. I mean, the grief the love for that man and that band is overwhelming.
Me, and like I said, it touched many Canadians across this great country. And like I said, I used to play his songs all the time. And New Orleans is Sinking, I used to open it up with in the band. And it was it's a tough one, and he'll be sadly missed.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I just want to say, as my remarks, I want everybody to remember that the Christmas in the Village, the Smithville Santa Claus Parade, is Saturday, November 25th. I hope I got that date right. And it starts at 2 o'clock. So if you haven't already, please get your entries into the planning committee. I know that last year, I believe we had close to 90 90 floats, or not just 90 floats, but 90 entries is a better way to put it, and tremendous amount of marching bands, and it is probably one of, if not, I can't say it, I'm a little biased, but it's a pretty good Santa Claus parade, let me tell you that much. So, anyway, thank you so much, councilors. We'll now move on to new items of business. Note only for items that require immediate attention, direction from council, and must first approve a motion to introduce a new item of business. Is there any new items of business from any members of council? Madam Clerk, I see none. We'll now move on to bylaws, and Councillor Trumbella?
I have those, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Chichuk, go ahead.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ganan, that leave be granted to introduce bylaws 2017-106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, and 116, and that the same shall be considered to have been read a first, second, and third time with one reading, and are hereby adopted, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and affix the corporate seal thereto, any rule of this council to the contrary notwithstanding.
Thank you, councillors. The resolution was moved by Councillor Chichuk and seconded by Councillor Ganan. Is there any comments or question to tonight's bylaws? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. All righty then, we'll move on to confidential matters. Councillor Bosma, you have that resolution to go into closed session.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ganan that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public to consider the following pursuant to Section 239 of the Municipal Act. A, that acting CAO Clerk Carol Langley, read personnel matter, CAO recruit update, applicable closed session exemption, personal matters of unidentifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, labor relations, or employee negotiations. And B, acting CAO Clerk Carol Langley, read personnel matter, staffing issues, applicable closed session exemption, personal matters of unidentifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and labor relations or employee negotiations.
Councillors, you've heard the resolution moved by Councillor Bosma and seconded by Councillor Ganan. Any comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll take a few minutes to wind down the cameras.